Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Winnipeg Jets franchise mode here in NHL 24. So in last episode, we obviously had part of the season simulation. We went 31-21-1 up to this point, and I think we should be pretty much on par to make the playoffs again, which is great. As you can see, we are in the wildcard spot right now with 63 points. The last wildcard team has 54 points, so as long as we don't fall off in the second half, I think this team should make it back to the playoffs again because we have been trending in the right direction, and hopefully we continue to get some good production from our top guys and all that. But very excited to see what happens the rest of the season. But I do have a trade that I think I'm going to be making in this episode. I'll get to it in a little bit because we do have to get to our very first comment and only comment we got in the last episode, because I'm obviously recording this today after you guys seen the last episode, because I got to put this one out technically tomorrow, but you guys would be seeing this, I guess, on the Thursday. But anyways, that comment is from Otaku, who says several of his teammates gained morale because Chinnikov signed an extension, which is not something I've seen before. Nick Hague has always simulated very well for me. He doesn't contribute a ton of points, but is an absolute rock defensively, though it would look like he would only fit your top 6 pairing, which I'm not sure would be the best use for him. His contract is very affordable, so maybe worth taking a shot. I would have said that Tanev could have been good trade bait, but he's been playing out of his mind, so I would hold on to him. And yeah, the player we are going to be trading for is probably going to be Nick Hague. Now, we aren't going to be moving Tanev because I do really like Tanev's defensive play, like Otaku was mentioning. Tanev has been a very good rock on our defensive core right now. He is older, but you can see he's a plus 17 through 53 games. While you look at the rest of our defensemen, most of them are like kind of more average defensively, so obviously bringing in another really good defenseman might be a little bit better just to kind of help out our defensive core a little bit. So basically the plan, I did go through the trade finder already, is probably to move out Logan Stanley in order to get Nick Hague, because both of them are pending free agents, and basically we're getting a little bit more expensive. It hasn't been Stanley's worst season by any standard. He's only gotten 10 points through 53 games. But the fact that he's a pending free agent, I think it makes sense for him to maybe have a little bit of change of scenery, and maybe he resigns in Vegas. So we are going to be moving him and getting Nick Hague in, and I might honestly move Hague next to Tanev, so it's like a solid defensive pairing. And then Heinola might go back down to the top 6, because I believe he has power play time, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check on that. Yeah, he has power play time, so he shouldn't complain about ice time. It depends, I guess, on the best fit in terms of chemistry, but I wouldn't mind having Hague into our top 4, but honestly, he could just be on our top 6 and like some of our penalty kill lines, but I think bringing him in should definitely help out with the defensive play more. And then we're pretty rock solid in terms of offense, defense, and goaltending, so hopefully we have a pretty good playoff run once we do that trade. But let's go ahead and make that trade for Nick Hague. So we're going to go to the trade finder. I did look at some of the other options. There's like 5 different trades that Vegas was offering me, and one of them is the more intriguing one. So if we go to sort this by overall, Nick Hague, you can see he's an 83 at 26. Right now, he has not been actually playing that good defensively in Vegas, but I guess Vegas isn't a good team right now. He's a minus 18 through 54 games, so hopefully he'll be a little bit better with us. But he's the exact same age as Logan Stanley, but better, obviously, so I'm hoping that we could hold on to him for more than the season, Nick Hague, because he wouldn't be a bad option to have in the top 4, because we should have probably not be bringing back Tanev. You know, I do like his defensive play. There's a good chance he drops off a lot or he retires, so Nick Hague would help out a lot with our top 4 defensive pairings. But yeah, here's basically the trade offers we get. So the first one is Tanev in a third. So if I was looking to ship Tanev, obviously this would be one I would do, but we're not going to do that. We're also definitely not going to be moving Barabanov, because Barabanov is one of our top 6, top 9 kind of guys. Then there's a couple trades involving Logan Stanley. Like I said, we will be doing one of these Logan Stanley ones. This first one is 2 third-rounders and Logan Stanley for Nick Hague. But then there's this one which is kind of interesting. I don't know if Calgary's third-round pick is a bit higher than our third-round pick this year, but you can see it's Stanley a third and a fourth instead of 2 thirds. So I'm kind of leaning towards doing this one. And then there was also Matt Roy straight up for Nick Hague, which is also kind of intriguing, but Matt Roy's been solid with us as well. And he's also on a pretty team-friendly contract. So I think the one we are going to be doing is this one. Stanley a third and a fourth. And that will basically upgrade Stanley into Nick Hague and hopefully make our defensive core that much better. Also, we do get rid of a few picks that we probably don't really need, because usually you don't get too many good players in these later round picks. So I'm not too worried that we're going to end up losing out on a really good prospect, but we could easily bring in more prospects and picks down the road when we go into rebuild territory. But yeah, this should be a pretty good upgrade. Basically, this is what Nick Hague's looking like. Really good defensively, good shot blocking, good stick checking. And then, yeah, obviously he doesn't really bring a ton of offense, but he does have good shot power, good passing. And then you look at somebody like Logan Stanley right now, who's definitely more defensively oriented, only is 73 on the offensive awareness, so he's not going to bring much offense, but he does once again have that shot power, some okay passing, but definitely a little bit more of a defensive upgrade with the addition of Nick Hague. So that's going to be our trade. So best of luck to Logan Stanley in Vegas. It's actually kind of surprising. Both of us are in very similar spots. So Vegas, even though they're a good team, they're 30-20-4. Nick Hague has been abysmal defensively, which might not be a great thing, but it's kind of weird because we both might make the playoffs, and because we have both identical records, but basically we were flipping one player for another. So who knows? Maybe both teams will face each other in the playoffs at some point. But let's bring in Nick Hague and upgrade that defensive core. And yeah, best of luck to Logan Stanley in Vegas. Kind of a tough decision to make, but I think it upgrades our defensive core quite a bit. As you can see, now we have legit, really good defenders. Sandberg is still going to be our depth defenseman, but we basically have Heinola and Ruda likely on the top six. Hague, Roy is there, and Tanev, Morrissey. So this team is definitely going to hopefully be a little bit stronger on the defensive side of things. Also give us a bit more size in our lineup, even though Stanley technically is a big defenseman, I guess, as well. But Nick Hague will go in this spot. He's a two-way defenseman instead of a DFD. Let's take a look at the fits. He actually fits our top four pretty well, it looks like. So I am going to put him next to Tanev for now. And then if something goes wrong, we could put Heinola back into the top four. But it seems like he actually fits both of our both of our defensive pairings quite well, except for our top pairing, obviously. But we're not going to throw him in, obviously, on the top unit, because that's where Josh Morrissey will always reside. So I think that's good. I don't know if we're going to make any more trades this season, because I honestly feel like our roster is definitely stronger than last year. Maybe a little bit weak in some areas, but I think our center depth is great. Our winger depth maybe a little bit lacking, but Chinnikov has been good. Our defensive depth has been really good so far. Our goaltending depth is obviously really good. So hopefully this is a year where we could make it to a Stanley Cup Finals, win a Stanley Cup, because obviously once we get into the territory where we need to rebuild, we want to kind of have one cup under our belt before we get back into winning Stanley Cups and all that type of thing. So I think that's going to be our only trade we make. Let's see what happens with this team. Actually, let me go ahead to edit lines again for a sec. I want to go to penalty kill and make sure Nick Hague is getting a good chunk of penalty kill time as well, because I think he could help us out on our penalty kill. He already is, okay. Top pairing on the penalty kill with Morrissey. I like that. Does he actually fit our penalty kill well? Is he a good fit? Yeah, he is. With the strategy, that's actually perfect. Love to see it. That's a good addition in that sense. Okay, let's continue to simulate and see if we can make it to the playoffs. We should be able to, unless we drop 10 plus games in a row. But let's go to a day before the deadline. Actually, let's just go to March 1st. Take it a little bit slower. See how we do in these final 6 games of the month. And looks like we're getting some points in every game so far, except for that one against the Flyers and Arizona as well. So 34, 23, and 2. Pretty good. We are at 70 points. Wildcard's at 64 now. Which 64, and they've played one more game than us too. So we're still in a pretty good spot. In terms of teams that are outside of the playoffs at the moment, you have the Ducks on 59 points, who are outside of the playoffs, as the closest team to catch us, basically, that's not in the playoff spot. So we're 11 points up. We should be in a really good spot to make it to the postseason this year, which is really nice. We lose there. We lose there. Okay, we're on a little bit of a skid here in these last 3 games. Don't really know why. Don't really know why. It's a little bit concerning. We are a day before the deadline now, though. So do I want to adjust our defensive pairings a bit? Let's see how Nick Hague has done for the team so far. Has he been good? He has been. +4 in 8 games. See, that's what we brought him in. Good defensive play. I mean, he is playing with the best defensive defenseman in Chris Tanev, who's now a +22. My God. Yeah, Chris Tanev is completely playing out his mind defensively, because you look at everybody else. Matt Roy is a +10, which is great. But you look at like Jan Ruda, for example, who's only a -1 through 38 games with us. And then Heinola is only a +1 this season. I guess he's getting a little bit shredded defensively on that top six because I think he was better when he was playing next to Tanev. So maybe I flip-flop the two. Maybe I flip-flop the two because I don't want Heinola to obviously get a little bit too defensively bad in a sense. Yeah, I think that's what we'll rock with. Even though Hague has been good so far, I want to put him to the top six for now, just to kind of change things up a little bit. And then from a forward perspective, I think we'll keep everything else the same. Looks good. Let's continue to simulate and see if we make it to the playoffs. I don't really think I'm going to make any more trades, but let's intervene into the trade deadline and see if there's anything else intriguing for us. I don't think there's really anything we need, but honestly, we could trade for more stuff if we want to. Pavelski on 1 year left. No thanks. He's 40 years old. A lot of old men on the block. Some younger guys too, but not really in areas that I think we need to address. Yeah, a lot of goalies and stuff. I don't think we need to make any more trades, to be honest. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make any more trades. We will still take a look at what the AI is doing in terms of trades, so anyways, at this deadline, because I think we did that last year, and I'd like to try and do that for the series a good amount. Drew Doughty got traded to Florida for Sergei Bobrovsky and 2 second-round picks, so a bad contract for a bad contract that ends in a few years. Interesting. Drew Doughty on his way to Florida. I could just see him with some sunglasses right now, sitting on like a beach in Florida, considering he probably did that in California before that, and then Bob goes to another warm place in LA. Interesting. Okay, not the type of trade I was expecting to see at the deadline, but here we are. Let's go to the trade center and see what happens. So Kevin Hayes gets traded to Buffalo from St. Louis for Isaac Rosen, who's I think a top 6 prospect, and some picks and whatnot. Robbie Fabry getting traded to Pittsburgh with a 4th rounder and Hayden Fleury for Brandon Yeager. So Detroit gets a good prospect as Pittsburgh decides to give up on I think a former 1st round pick already. So not a surprise that they're trying to contend still with Sid is not retired, I think. Chicago gets David Perron and Jason Zucker for 2 prospects. Okay, so Detroit's definitely offloading. Dallas has acquired a 3rd, a 4th, and Travis Hamonic, and they get Consta Helenius in return. That's actually a pretty good return, because I believe Helenius develops really well in franchise mode, if I'm not mistaken. Tampa gets a 3rd, a 5th, and Anthony Stolars for Hutton and Sergei Gonchar with a J. Interesting. So it looks like a couple teams are offloading prospects for guys to help out in the playoffs. Detroit gets a prospect, Miguel Marquez, and a 4th rounder for Jeff Petrie, Alex Edler, and Justin Danforth, who head to Toronto. There's the Doughty trade for Bobrovsky in 2 seconds. Victor Arvidsson going to Dallas with a 4th rounder and Joel Blomqvist for a 2nd and Antonio Stranges. Chicago gets Colton Parayko from LA. That's a pretty big acquirement for the Chicago Blackhawks, who made the playoffs in year 1. So Chicago is definitely trying to build a good core around Bedard, it seems like. So they get Colton Parayko from the LA Kings. Anaheim getting Trevor Moore from LA for a couple picks. Ottawa gets some prospects, well, 1 prospect in Jordan Greenway for Artem Zubin, a 5th. Interesting trade there. We got Nick Hague, obviously, and then there was also Jansen Harkins before the deadline going to Ottawa from St. Louis for Toure and a 3rd. Wow. Kind of surprised that they were able to get Harkins for Djibril Toure. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I do know who that guy is. He used to play for like the Sudbury Wolves. Really tall dude. So there's the trade. Damn, there was a little bit of lag right there when I was trying to go back to this. Those were the trades at the trade deadline. Let's simulate the rest of the season and see if we make it to the playoffs, which we probably should, unless we continue on this losing streak. Let's go to the 22nd, take it a little bit slower just in case we randomly fall off. There's a win over Carolina, losing against Pittsburgh. But then we kind of go back and forth between wins and losses, it looks like, which is not ideal. B.O. Gruel is on waivers. How good is he? 78 overall at 25 is not really that bad. We do already have depth options, though, in our NHL lineup. You'd be okay to put in the AHL right now. He is 25 already, so he's probably capped out overall-wise. So I'm not going to claim him, but that's not really that bad of a player to claim on waivers. If we didn't already have like Rasmus Kupari, I probably would have done that. So 39, 29, and 2, we are still in the wildcard spot with 80 points. The Blackhawks are right behind us with 76 and 70. And in terms of teams that are not in the playoffs, you have the Blues at 68 points, so they're 12 points back of us. They're not going to catch us likely. And then the Kraken are at 63 points, so they're 17 points back. So yeah, I think we're going to make the playoffs. We just definitely don't want to lose too many games consecutively, especially this late in the year. Let's see what we do in these 4 games here. There's a win, there's a win, there's another win, and an OT loss. So 3 straight good defensive games and then a bad one, but we did score a good amount of goals. And we should be almost guaranteed to make the playoffs. The Blackhawks are outside, or no, they're still in the wildcard spot, right? No, they're outside of a wildcard spot now. So the Blackhawks are outside of the playoffs with 80 points. The Ducks are in that last wildcard with 81. And we're on 87. We should be still in a good spot. We're only 1 point back of the Wild for the second place in our division. Only behind the Avs, of course, which is going to be a tough team to beat if we have to play them in the playoffs. We do beat Nashville there. We have not clinched a playoff spot yet, but we have 7 games to go. Let's do through these 3 games and see how we do. 9-1 win over St. Louis. That's a good sign. Game against Buffalo is a 5-2 win, and we beat Seattle as well. We're 46, 29, and 3, and we have clinched a playoff spot. We're at 95 points now. Will we finish with a 50-win season? If we win these 4 games, we'll have 50 wins, but obviously going into the playoffs on a winning streak is kind of a recipe for disaster, I feel like. So we lose to Chicago, beat Calgary. Let's just go... I guess we'll put Torgerson back where he was. I was going to go best lines, but Capobianco can't play forward, so... I mean, he can, I guess, but still. We want to go with Torgerson instead there. Perfect. Ooh, Chaz Lucius is up to an 80. That's good. He's going to be probably in our lineup next season. Game against Dallas is a 3-1 win, and game against LA is a 3-1 win. We finished 49, 30, and 3. Pretty good second season here in Winnipeg, I'd say, as we finished only 3 points back of the Avs, but they do have 1 more game left, so maybe a little bit more than that. But let's see the final standings. So Colorado still has their last game. There we go. We finished 5 points back of them. But we are technically in the Western Conference. We're technically the second best team in the West. And the Golden Knights end up clinching their division. So Logan Stanley will be playing in the playoffs. And same with Nick Hague, which is intriguing. Hopefully we don't have to run into Vegas, because I feel like Logan Stanley could come back to bite me randomly. But 92 points in 82 games for Kyle Connor. Really good season for him. Much better than last year. 51 goals. Love to see it. Love to see it. Let's take a look at our team stats and player stats. So, team stat wise, where did we finish in the entire league? We were the 5th best team in the entire league. There was a couple good Eastern Conference teams, so we finished behind Florida, Colorado, Washington, and Toronto. Goals for per game wise, we were the 2nd best offensive team behind the Toronto Maple Leafs, so that's really good to see. Good depth scoring, I guess. Goals against per game wise, we weren't the best defensive team. We were a little bit below mid-table, so that could improve a little bit, but that's okay. Power play percentage, we were one of the best teams on the power play. Probably helped out with our offense a little bit. And our penalty kill was not very good. So from a defensive standpoint, it still needs to improve a bit, but maybe it will improve in the playoffs. Only 2 shorthanded goals, 25-15-1 on home ice, and 24-15-2 on the road. We are 8-1-1 going into the playoffs, which makes me feel like we're going to get swept. I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not the case. Let's take a look at our player stats now. See who did what. So starting off with our center, Scheifele, 80 points in 82 games, 19 or plus 19. I don't know if he had a zone ability to start, but he might have lost some X factors already. Not 100% sure with that, but pretty solid season for Scheifele. Might be one of these type of guys that definitely gets flipped once you start to go to rebuild territory, because Cole Perfetti had a great year, 76 points in an even 0. And yeah, he might be ready to take that leap and being a first-line center for us, and Scheifele being more of a second-liner. Gabe Vilardi, 52 points. Really good year, actually, for Gabe Vilardi. He's definitely much better as a first-line right winger. plus 22. Because, yeah, last year he only had 40 points, but he did only play 66. So maybe around on the same pace, but the plus-minus much, much better. What else we got here? Lowry on 39 points and a plus 26 is really good to see. Appleton 33 points plus 1. So it looks like our bottom 6 allowed a lot more goals than our top 6. Gustafsson had 30 points. Wow. So David Gustafsson and Appleton, for the amount of ice time they get, very good. Very good, I'd say. And then Kupari had nothing in 5 games, but was plus 2. Not bad. Left wing wise, Kyle Connor on 92 points plus 16. I will definitely take that. Ehlers on 76 points, only a plus 1. So it looks like the second line might have been a bit defensive liability wise. Just to take note. Iafallo 47 points plus 19. That's pretty good. Did get power play time though. Morgan Bear on 33 points plus 5. Yeah, I've been impressed with like the third line, I think it is, or the fourth line. Only 10 minutes of ice time again, but very good point totals. So I do like that. And then Fialbi had the 2 points in the 1 game he played. Right wing wise, Barabanov had 53 points this year. Pretty good season from Barabanov plus 20. Maybe that's what helped out with the offense on the third line, because I think he was on our third line, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he definitely did better this year on pace wise, I think, than last year with us. Because we brought him in obviously halfway through the year. I think with us he was on pace for a little bit less. So there's Barabanov, and Chinnikov was great too. 47 points plus 2 only, but his plus minus did improve from when we last looked. So yeah, Chinnikov has been a good addition. Obviously he has a big extension kicking in next year, so I'm hoping he could start developing a little bit more than 47 points. If we get him up there, higher up in the top 6, he should be able to outperform players like Barabanov. I don't know if Barabanov comes back, because Chinnikov is almost like a good replacement for him. And a little bit younger. Defensively, oh my. Josh Morrissey, 74 points and a plus 16. I love myself some Josh Morrissey. He's only signed for 3 more years, which is still a good amount of term, but I would like him to retire here, I think. 24 points for Heinola, plus 9 is pretty solid. Tanev was 21 points and a plus 28, so he actually brought more offense than I was thinking he would, but very good plus-minus department for Chris Tanev. And he's still an 83, which is great. So hopefully he can bring some good defense in the playoffs. Nick Hague, 18 points in 83 games. How much did he do with us? 9 points in a plus 15 in 29 games. That's what I'm wanting from Nick Hague. Some offense and then a very good plus-minus department for Nick Hague. Big upgrade from Logan Stanley, I think. Love that. Love that a lot. Matt Roy was also good. 18 points for him and a plus 23. So a lot of good plus minus on this team, even though we did give up a lot of goals. Jan Ruda, 13 points, plus 8. How much did he have with us? He was plus 10 through 59 games. So him and Hague work really well in that top 6. And then Sandberg, 4 points in 23 games, plus 1. Goalie-wise, Connor Hellebuck had a 906. Not terrible. He did definitely improve from his 893 he had earlier in the season. And then Brossoit had a 901. Not the best goaltending stats for sure, but I mean, they had 7 assists combined, both goalies. So we were getting offense from everybody on the team, basically. Wow, okay. Let's take a look at stats around the league. So the best player in terms of points, Matthews with 115, Kuznetsov at 106, and Marner at 103. So not a lot of 100-point scorers. Best goal scorer this year was Ovechkin at the age of 39 with 53 goals. Kyle Connor finished second in goals. So Kyle Connor nearly won a Richard, but he finished just behind Ovi. Don't mind that at all. DeBrincat also up there and that type of thing. Let's take a look at Selke candidates. So we will go takeaways. And let's see. Probably you're looking at Sebastian Aho. Yeah, probably Aho, or actually, or Anze Kopitar, because he's much better on the faceoffs. So probably Kopitar is going to get another Selke. Most fights for fun. Foligno at 24. Pat Maroon up there with 16. Tanner Jeannot. Adam Lowry was up there with 5 fights. From a defensive standpoint, oh my goodness. Adam Fox had 102 points this year. Jeez, man. That's insane. 6 goals, 96 assists. And then behind him, Eric Carlson with 91. Cale Makar was over point per game, but he missed 6 games this year. Spurgeon on 75. Morrissey was top 5 in defensive points. You love to see it. So there is that. From a goalie perspective, best goalie in terms of wins was Kemper with 45. Most shutouts, Shesterkin with 7. Best save percentage by a starter, Spencer Knight with a 919, but Shesterkin also up there with a 917. Same with Kemper. Best goals against average by a starter was Spencer Knight. So Spencer Knight, Freddie Anderson likely up there as well. Shesterkin up there for the Vezina. Any goalie goals this season? No goalie goals. Most assists was Connor Hellebuyck on our team with 5. Nice. Best rookie in year 2, Shane Wright with 57. Maki Smaskowicz or Samoskevich, I think it's pronounced, 46 points. Atu Ratu with 44. Mintyukov with 38. This guy in real life has been really good too. So there is all of that. I think we will now take a look at who we're playing in round 1. And hopefully it's a team that we could beat, because I don't want to run into like another team like the Avs this year. I just don't. And Kuzmin was never injured, I think, so we'll just leave that. It's going to be Minnesota in round 1. They were 3-7 going into the playoffs, which makes me a little bit scared that they might cheese us. But they finished 43, 33, and 6. So if they beat us, that would definitely be a cheese factor for sure. Let's take a look at their lineup. I also do actually want to quickly check before we take a look at Minnesota how good Logan Stanley did with Vegas since they made the playoffs. Let's see. Playing exactly where Hague probably would have. Let's see. 28 games. He was an even 0. Had only 2 assists. So I definitely think we got the better player, but I think it definitely doesn't really make a difference based on how the team simulated really that much. Let's see what we got, though, in terms of the Wild. So, from an offensive standpoint, okay, yeah, this is a pretty good offensive core. Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Matthew Boldy, of course. So, yeah, that's a really good top line. Second line's pretty good, too. I mean, Zuccarello's getting old, but Zuccarello, Rossi, and Hartman. Third line, Freddie Gaudreau, Marcus Johansson, and Marcus Foligno, who likes to fight people, apparently. Adam Beckman, Vinny Lettieri, and Noel Gumler is in their lineup. Interesting. I guess Carolina must have traded him, right? Yeah, I think he must have got traded during the 2023-24 season because he was with Carolina's old AHL team. And it looks like he got dealt to Minnesota, played 5 games with them. So, that's intriguing. So, from an offensive standpoint, that's a pretty good forward core. Not as good as ours, I'd say, based on the fact that we have maybe a little bit better center depth. We have, I'd say, I don't know, we might be pretty close in terms of stud players because Boldy's great, Kaprizov is great. Everybody else is pretty much an average top sixer, so not really sure on who has the better forward core. From a defensive standpoint, they're very strong as well. Brodin and Spurgeon, Johnson and Middleton, and Scandella's back in Minnesota. That's kind of neat. And Nikita Zaitsev is there as well. So yeah, from a defensive standpoint, this team's pretty good. They definitely brought in a lot of new pieces, but I think our defensive core is a little bit better considering the fact we have an 83 on our top 6. But I definitely think they have a good defensive core for the record. And goaltending-wise, they got Wallstead now in the NHL as an 86 already at 22. Jeez. Didn't have the best season, it looks like. Yeah, 900 save percentage. And playoff-wise, he has not played an NHL playoff game up to this point. And then they also have Philip Gustafsson as an 86. So they have a really good 1-2 punch in net. I guess Fleury must have retired. And they also have Mahura, Benoit, and Merrill. So 3 defenders. Yeah, they actually have a pretty good-looking team. Let me actually take a look at how they assimilated compared to us, and then that'll be it for this episode. I want to see if they were a better defensive team than us, or a better offensive team, or what. I don't think they're going to have much better than us, just because of the fact that we finished way higher than them in the standings. But yeah, we finished with 101 points. They finished with 92. We were much better offensively. They were a tiny bit better defensively. They allowed 1 less goal per game, which is kind of crazy. They were a little bit better also on the power play, surprisingly, by 0.2%. And then their penalty kill was much better. So, even though we were technically better than them in the standings by a long shot, they were technically a okay team for the most part. They were not really good on the road, but they were really good on home ice. And they're 3-7 going into the playoffs. We're 8-1-1. I honestly feel like we're going to get cheesed somehow in round 1, but I'm hoping obviously for the reverse of that, and hopefully we can get ourselves to that second round, and hopefully Colorado gets knocked out early so we don't have to face them again in the playoffs, because obviously I would like to win a Stanley Cup here early on, and then we could go into that rebuild territory. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Winnipeg Jets franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to round 1 against the Minnesota Wild as we look to get ourselves to round 2 again, and hopefully beyond that. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.